For more than 47 years, our nonprofit, Resources for Seniors, has supported older adults and caregivers in Wake County. We can help in many different ways, including adult daycare programs, ramps and repairs, in-home supports, and consultation and referrals. Indeed, we're who to call when you're not sure who to call. Resources for Seniors stands ready to support you in your caregiving journey.
I'm Mark Costley, the founding attorney of Clarity Legal Group, the Triangle Area estate planning and elder law firm. You know those people who become overwhelmed dealing with the multiple challenges of being a caregiver? Clarity Legal Group helps people establish legal tools that avoid confusion, give them peace of mind, give them asset protection, and in some cases help them qualify for Medicaid. We help people get it right in the face of some of life's most important challenges. We don't just provide wills, trusts, and powers of attorney. We provide solutions and ongoing support. We provide clarity and peace of mind. It would be a privilege to help you.
Are you like 80% of seniors who would like to age in your current home? Call Wisdom Senior Care. Are you currently taking care of a loved one and finding yourself frustrated, tired, and even lonely? Call Wisdom Senior Care. Always available, dependable, and flexible. Come partner with Wisdom Senior Care, keeping wisdom at home.
Hi, I'm Daniela Weeks with Next Home Turnkey Realty here in the Triangle, and I'm here today to talk to you about what seniors need to know about selling their home in today's market. As you or a loved one require a different living situation, selling the family home may become necessary. And seniors may face some unique challenges when navigating this major transition. Homes are sold quite differently in today's market as well. So it's important to educate yourself so you can make an informed decision and the best one for you or a loved one. So today, I'm going to be breaking down this topic into 3 categories that I like to call the 3 Ps. How to prepare your home for sale in today's market, how to present your home, and then how to promote your home. So the 3 Ps: prepare, present, promote. So let's first get started with the prepare stage. This is probably the stage that stresses people out the most. Senior or not, the idea of moving can be extremely overwhelming. The idea of packing, sorting, the whole process in general is extremely daunting. So imagine if you have health challenges or physical challenges. Maybe you don't have any family in the area to help. This is a reality for many seniors. So one best kept secret that I would like to tell you about today is a senior move management company. I like to think of it as a moving company on steroids. So a typical moving company, and there are some exceptions, but typically they will come to your home and pick up the boxes that you've already packed and move them from point A to point B. A senior typically needs a higher level of service than this. So a senior move management company can offer a lot of really specific services that this individual may need, such as sorting through items in the house and really determining what can be donated, what can be discarded, what can be sold in an auction or an estate sale, what can be set aside for family members, and most importantly, what items can that senior take with them to their new place. This is a very emotional process. So this sorting, this idea of determining what to take is not an easy task, but the move management can help make it a smoother transition. One thing that they are able to do is, assuming you know where you're going, they can get floor plans for the place that you're going and measure the items that you're going to take with you to make sure that these items are going to fit. And really the goal is to try to copy your existing living situation as much as possible in your new space. Obviously, there's going to be a big reduction in square footage, so this can get a little tricky. But the prime goal is to really allow you to pick your favorite items and to put them in the new space so it's a safe place to live and it feels as much as your original home as possible. The next part of the prepare stage is doing any repairs or updates to the home. Now, this will largely depend on whether you want to sell the home as is, or if you are open to making some repairs and updates to sell the home for a higher profit. I will tell you, before you make any final decisions, it's always a great idea to meet with a real estate professional who can show you all of your options. If you do determine that selling the home as is the best choice for you, most likely your buyer will be an investor, and you can sell the home off-market or on-market to an investor. With off-market, let's kind of discuss what that looks like. There are typically two types of investors that I'm going to discuss today. One is a local investor and one is a national investor. The local investors, they're not doing a ton of transactions, so they really need to make a higher profit on each transaction. So their offers, they might not be as competitive. They are typically buying the house as is, cash offer, and sometimes as quick as a 10-day close. For some people, this may be the right choice. They also may have certain buying criteria, or a buy box, what they like to call. So they might not buy homes that are over a certain price point. Typically, if your home is worth over $500,000, that's probably not a property they would be interested in. Also, properties on over an acre. They like to typically choose properties that are easier to maintain. Location is also one of the main things that they look at. You've heard location, location, location. So if you're in a more rural area, that might not be as appealing to an investor versus if you're living inside the Beltline, for instance. In this market, I typically see investors offer somewhere around 75% of market value. So for instance, if your home on the open market is worth $300,000, their offer may come in around $225,000. Now they are buying the property as is, and it's a quick sale, but that's a lot of money. So let's talk about the other type of investor, which is a national investor. They are oftentimes able to come up with a little bit more of a competitive price because they're making their money on volume. They're selling a lot of houses, so they don't have to make as much per transaction. And their buying criteria are going to be similar. You may have heard of some of these national investors such as Open Door, OfferPad. And you might be quite surprised to receive their offers, but they work a little bit differently in terms of repairs. Although they're not expecting you to do the repairs up front, what happens is they will present you an offer, then they will have an inspection, just like a traditional buyer would have. They'll tally up the costs associated with those repairs and updates that they would like to make to the home, and they take it off of your bottom line. So what may have sounded like a pretty good offer up front, by the time you get to the closing table after their fees and commissions and the cost of the repairs and updates, it's really not maybe what you quite thought it would be. Once again, before you make any final decisions, please consult with a real estate agent who can show you what the true value of your home is in this market. Now let's pivot and talk about more of a traditional approach to real estate, and that's marketing your home on market to a traditional buyer. Buyers in today's market, they really will pay a premium for something that's essentially move-in ready. And what do I mean by move-in ready? Paint and carpet are some of the minimum things buyers look for when purchasing a home. If I had to pick one thing for you to focus on, it would be flooring. It's very difficult for a buyer to update flooring after they've already moved everything into the home. If you have carpet that's in decent condition, you may be able to shampoo it. If it's in poor condition, it would be recommended to replace that carpet. And it wouldn't be prudent to replace it with a very high-end Berber, but something more economical like a builder-grade carpet. If you have hardwood floors that maybe have some scratches or sun damage, it would be a good idea to have them refinished. The second thing you'd want to focus on is paint, or if you have wallpaper in your home or a kaleidoscope of colors. What we really want to create for the buyer audience in today's market is a blank canvas. Some of the top colors that are chosen by designers around the country are Sherwin-Williams Agreeable Gray and Sherwin-Williams City Loft. These are very neutral grayish colors that will complement any buyer's color palette. If you are interested in maybe some other very affordable options for updating your space, light fixtures are a great thing that don't cost a lot of money but can make a big impact in a home and modernize a space. And if you're interested in doing even more renovations, focus on the kitchen and the master bath. This is where you'll get your greatest return on investment. Now you may wonder, how am I going to pay for all these updates? That's a great question. So oftentimes people will tap into their savings account knowing that they will recoup that investment at the closing of their home. If you have equity in the home, you can also get a home equity line to help pay for these updates. And finally, there are contractors in this market that will work on a payment plan with you. Your real estate agent should have some of these contacts. Typically, they will charge some sort of deposit when the work begins, and the remaining balance can be paid at closing out of your net proceeds. So in this market, just remember, it's very important to appeal to the buyer who has been very spoiled with watching HGTV, flip or flop, love it or list it. They are fascinated with beautiful homes that are staged and essentially move-in ready. So now that we've talked about the preparing stage of this process, let's now talk about how to present your home in today's market. And this is probably my favorite part. And this will largely depend on whether you plan on selling the home vacant or occupied. I will say selling it vacant is going to be much easier. It'll be less stressful for you to go ahead and get you settled into your new space before putting the home on the market. And if the home is vacant, I do suggest some light staging, and buyers love this in today's market. And light staging, I mean some white towels in the bathrooms to kind of create that spa experience, some florals and greenery strategically placed throughout the home, maybe a beautiful piece of artwork above the fireplace. The National Association of Realtors puts out some statistics every year, and according to that organization, a quarter of buyer agents surveyed stated that homes they listed that were staged got offers that were 1% to 5% higher than homes that were not staged. And 83% of buyers agents that were surveyed said a staged home definitely allowed a buyer to envision that home as a potential for them. So keep in mind when you are selling a home vacant, some light staging really does warm up a space. It makes it warm and inviting. Now, if that's not possible for you and you have to stay in the home while the home is on the market, that's okay. It requires a little bit more planning, but it's not impossible with the right team in place to help. Typically what happens if you've already engaged the help of a move management company, an agent themselves, or they'll work with a stager to develop a checklist that is handed off to the move management company. They're going to be working on moving and boxing your items up anyways, and so we're just going to use the garage as a place to store extra boxes. If you don't have a garage, you may consider an off-site storage unit to store extra boxes. The goal is to really declutter, depersonalize that space so that a buyer can really envision themselves in the home. Now, you may wonder, how am I going to navigate the whole process of showings, people coming in and out of my house all hours of the day? There is a way to block off time. You can specify that maybe you only want showings from 12 to 2 every day. That way, it's something you can plan for and it's predictable. In the same breath, I do want to say that the more flexible you can be, the quicker you'll sell your house, and then you don't have to worry about showing the home. If you don't think you can leave the home at all, then this is something that can just be communicated to buyer agents and the buyers, and people are very understanding. It may be a little uncomfortable to see people walking through your home, but it's not unheard of in this market. So now that you are ready with the staging, whether it's vacant or occupied, you're ready for photography. That's kind of the next step in the present stage. Professional photography, in my opinion, is a minimum standard. We know that 97% of buyers search for a home first on the internet, and they're looking at pictures. And so that image that we put out there, it needs to be a good one. It really matters. If you can't intrigue them with the pictures of your home, you will never get them in the front door to schedule a showing. There are many great photographers in the area, and they do some really cool things. Your real estate agent should be able to make a great recommendation, and they should handle getting that scheduled. Another great thing to offer when you're presenting your home to the public are floor plans of your home. Sometimes it's difficult to determine how your house is laid out by just flipping through pictures. When you can actually see a drawing of the floor plan, it makes it easier to see how the house flows. When you walk in the front door, the dining room is to the left and the kitchen is to the right. It's also important to have measurements of these rooms. You have to remember a buyer is most likely coming with existing furniture, and they want to be confident that their furniture is going to fit in your space. It'll give them confidence to move forward with showing, and then secondly, to put an offer in on your home. Another way that we present homes in today's market is through virtual tours and videography. I'm sure you've seen the videos where the drone comes in, panning over the neighborhood, it swoops down, the door opens, and now you're inside someone's house walking through each room. This has been quite popular over the years, but even more so now with COVID-19. There was actually a time here locally in Durham where homes were not able to be shown physically. And if you think about a senior, COVID or not, they may have some challenges in getting out and about and viewing property anyways. So this is a great way to market properties online. To share a personal story, over the past couple of months, I've sold 2 properties virtually. One was during the time that Durham was not allowing showings, and I had clients who lived out of town. And so we were able to show them the house virtually, and they felt confident in moving forward. The other most recent example I had was a young couple who have been looking at homes on and off for the last couple of months. They decided to take a vacation. And of course, that perfect house popped up while they were hiking in the Rockies. And so we were able to do a virtual tour for them and walk through the property, and so they could feel confident in making an offer. I would predict that even after COVID is gone, that we will still see this popularity of virtual tours and videography to promote properties on the market today. So now that you have learned about how to present your home, now we're going to move on to the 3 Ps. So we've talked about how to prepare your home for the market, how to present your home to the buyer's market, and now we're going to talk about how to promote your property. And this has a lot to do with the internet and digital marketing. So I'm going to get into that, but I would like to take you down memory lane and talk a little bit about how homes used to be sold. So in the early 1900s, I would say about 1908 to 1950, you could actually buy a home kit from a Sears catalog for a house. They had over 500 designs, and the prices ranged from about $1,000 to $5,000. It would literally be shipped on the railroad in a kit. And their advertisements would talk about how you didn't even need a carpenter to build this house. I find that fascinating. The quality of the items was apparently so good that 70% of those Sears homes are still standing today, and you'll find them along the railroads throughout the country. One city in particular, Cincinnati, Ohio, was a very popular place where people decided to use this method to build out neighborhoods. Then in about 1950 and 1960, we moved into more of the newspaper print advertising. Real estate offices started popping up, and they would display their listings in the window. Now, you can still find this today, but it's certainly not the leading way that homes are sold. And then in the 70s, we saw floppy disks come to fruition. And real estate listings were sold on were put on floppy disks, so you'd have to put it in the server and view listings on a monitor. And then up until the internet was created in the late 90s and the multiple listing service was developed, you had to physically go into a real estate agent's office. Can you imagine? And you had to look through MLS-bound books of listings. It was just hundreds of listings printed on pieces of paper. The challenge with this method was there was a 2-week delay. So by the time an agent got a new listing, entered the data, and printed it out and distributed it to all brokers in the area, that home may have already been sold. Can you see how different that is in today's market, where literally I can enter a property into the MLS and within minutes it can be distributed to over 500 websites. And that's how properties are marketed today. When an agent puts a listing into the multiple listing service, it automatically syndicates to over 500 websites, and it works like a spider web. So then each of those websites syndicate to other websites. So your home literally will be advertised on over 1,000 websites. And some of these will be very familiar to you. Realtor.com, Zillow, Truly, and Homes.com. But there are literally thousands. So think about the exposure that your home is going to get in today's market versus before where it was hyper local and time-wise not efficient at all. So now you can literally market your home in minutes to the world. So let's talk about some other forms of digital marketing that's used to promote properties in today's market. Search engine optimization is essentially keyword searches. So how this works, companies that want to promote their own listings or other listings because they want to represent you as a buyer will embed keywords into their websites. So for instance, maybe it's Raleigh homes, homes for sale, ranch homes, whatever it is. If you're typing that into the Google search bar, their website is going to come up as a search result. They want you to visit their website to view the properties that they have for sale. Another way that homes are being marketed today is remarketing. And this is one that might freak you out a little bit. So have you ever been in front of your computer searching for a product? Maybe you're even talking about it and you're searching for, let's say, ceiling fans. Then all of a sudden you're scrolling through Facebook and you start seeing ads for ceiling fans. And then you go and check your email, and all along the side are banner ads for ceiling fans. It's a little eerie, and you start wondering, who's listening? Who's watching me? Is it Big Brother? Well, what it really is are advertising and marketing companies that are listening to your computer, and they're watching what is it that you're searching for, and then they're going to remarket products and services that are similar, and they follow your digital footprint throughout the computer. So this is just another way that you can get homes advertised in front of you. Another type of digital marketing that's being used today are email campaigns. And I'm sure at one point or another, you found yourself on the other end of an email campaign. And these are companies like Realtor.com or Zillow that are sending you homes, new listings that pop up. You may have also been set up on a similar email campaign by a real estate agent. And it's really to keep you informed of the latest houses that pop up on the market. And this is how buyers stay informed too. They constantly are receiving updates on what new homes are hitting the market. And in this market, you have to move quickly. By the time they receive a notification, you have to schedule a showing that same day and get to see it. Homes are being sold so quickly within hours. So this type of digital marketing allows people to act very quickly. And then another type of digital marketing that we see is through social media. So some of the major platforms you've heard of, Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitter, Snapchat, still trying to figure out how to use that one. But the point is that these are, not only are they visually based platforms where people can look at these beautiful professional pictures that were taken of your home, but they spend a lot of time on these platforms. So it's a great way to get these ads in front of the buyer public. Now I want to take some time to share with you some personal experiences that I've had over the years. I've worked here locally in the senior industry for over 15 years. I have my master's in healthcare administration, and I really started my career working in hospitals, community health centers, nonprofits, in nursing homes as an administrator, and even in hospice. And through those experiences, I was able to be on the other side of this equation where I saw families really struggle with the process of getting mom or dad from point A to point B. And the struggle with that. It was not uncommon to see families come in and tour the community that I was managing. And a year later, we were still trying to get them to take that first step and commit to moving in. One particular situation I wanted to share with you was a couple that they did just that. They came and toured my community, and we kept following up with them and trying to get them to move. We knew it was a safer setting for them. They did have family locally, but I think the family was very overwhelmed with how do we even help. And I remember the wife invited me to come to her house. She wanted me to see in person what it was they were dealing with. They lived in this big, beautiful house, over 3,000 square feet, and it was top to bottom filled with beautiful antiques, family memorabilia, and personal possessions. And I'll never forget, in her dining room, she had boxes laid out along the edge of the dining room, and each box had a name. And I asked her, what is this for? And she started to name off all of her children and grandchildren, and she had started to sort through items and figure out, what little Johnny might want from the house and what Kate might want. And the truth of the story is the grandchildren and children, although that's very thoughtful, they may not have had a space for those items. And it was very difficult for these particular clients to understand that to make this downsize and make this transition, they were going to have to part with things that were really sentimental to them, and that their family might not necessarily want them or see the same value in them. And as I walked through the house, room to room, and it wasn't cluttered by any means, but it's just a big house and it's a lot of stuff. And then it finally clicked. Now I could see from their perspective how difficult it would be to navigate such a big move. And it took me recommending, and at that time I was still kind of unfamiliar with all the resources that were out there because this was prior to my real estate career. But I knew that a senior move management company was probably exactly what they needed. And it was. And those companies come in and they really kind of take charge of the situation and figure out what needs to happen. As I mentioned before, they're sorting through those items and figuring out what's going to be discarded, what's going to be donated. It's a long process, and it takes a lot of sensitivity. This is not something that you can hire ABC Moving Company to come in and do. They just don't offer that level of service. You really need a company that specializes in this, has the sensitivity and the training to work with the family and their loved ones to make this happen. Another story that I'll share with you has been recently. So now I've already been on the other side now as a real estate agent for 5 years. And so it's just great to have both perspectives. But this particular situation was a gentleman who had been living alone in a townhouse for years and years. And his only surviving family member was a niece who lived in New York City. And this was all happening during the pandemic. She was not allowed to leave New York City. She was quarantined. And we needed to move very quickly in getting this gentleman into a safer setting. He kept going back and forth to the hospital, and the townhouse was no longer safe for him. It's a 2-story townhouse, and he really needed to be not only one level living, but in some sort of environment where he could get the oversight and care that he needed. And so after the whole situation was over, I was astounded when I actually put it on paper how many people were involved with this process. I think I counted up between 10 and 15 different professionals that made this happen. The referral first came from a home health company that had been working with him after hospitalization. It was the social worker. And he was a member of another organization in the community that had a social worker assigned to him. And those two social workers were trying to determine where is he going to go. So then they brought in a placement coordinator whose job it is to take seniors or family members around to different communities to find out what's a best fit. So that person got involved. And then we brought in the senior move management company because we needed to figure out, after we had found where he was going, he needed personal items to take with him and he needed some furniture. So the move management company had to come in and determine, from an 1,800 square foot townhouse, now he has maybe 500 square feet to move into. So what items are important to him? And all while during this pandemic, when you're not even allowed to go into facilities, and he's not able to communicate maybe what he wants. So then we're getting the niece involved in New York City to really help guide us. Do you remember, what was his favorite painting? What are his favorite pants? And so the senior move management company, they did such a wonderful job in helping determine what would be the best items to take there. And then they proceeded to bring in a company that buys items and takes it off and sells it at little shops. There wasn't quite enough to do an estate sale. You may think that you have enough, to do an auction or an estate sale. You actually need quite a bit of items for a company to take on that project, but there are other ways to sell those items and find a way to make some sort of profit off of those items. There are also items that the niece in New York wanted that were sentimental. That's her, our only surviving family member, and she wanted some mementos. And then it was time, after we got the house cleared out, I needed to hire somebody to come and physically move some of the items that the company didn't take to sell. And then it was time to bring the contractors in, and we had painters and a designer and a flooring company. And all in the midst of all this, I am the conductor, and it's like a big orchestra with lots of moving parts. There's a lot of instruments. You can imagine if everybody's not playing their part, it's not going to sound very good. So it's my job to really pull together this whole team of people, because it's not me doing all of this. It's not the caregiver, hopefully, not doing all of this. It really does require a team effort. When it is a senior, they need so much more care and coordination. And so just thinking about that, how many people had to come together, what had to take place to get that gentleman from point A to point B safely. And I wanted to also mention some of the updates we made. I know I touched upon that in my presentation. This was a situation where the townhouse was in pretty bad condition. It needed a lot of cosmetic updates. And initially, the niece thought maybe it would be best to sell it as is for a quick sale. But when we looked at the numbers, they were going to take a big hit. And as you know, senior care is very expensive. And that extra money that we could possibly make on that sale by fixing it up a little bit, that could pay for maybe a year of his care in an assisted living facility. And so we did a comparative market analysis. We looked at the cost of what it was going to take to update, and we made sure that we were making a wise investment. And in that particular situation, they ended up making an extra $20,000 even after paying for all the services involved and all the updates and renovations. So, as I mentioned before, in this market, buyers will pay a premium for something that's move-in ready. Another example that I would like to share is a couple that was referred to me by a senior move management company not too long ago. They were extremely overwhelmed. They did have an adult daughter living with them, but even the adult daughter became very overwhelmed with this big house that they lived in. They were relocating to Florida, and when it was referred to me by a senior move management company, they had already pretty much set their heart on selling to an investor. They thought that would be the quickest, the easiest, hassle-free. And they already had an offer for $330,000 when I walked in that door, when I first met with them. And so we looked at the market, I looked at the numbers, and we ended up listing that house for $365,000, and it sold. And so they just made $35,000 more, and the house needed a ton of work. But you have to understand the differences, the type of investors that are out there. There's the investors that get a knock on your door and tell you that your house is only worth this much. But on the open market, there may be somebody else that's willing to pay more. And it's worth giving it a shot to see how much more you can make. That is money that can help pay for your loved one's care. Now that you've heard some real life examples, I want to talk about maybe some assumptions that you make about this process or some pitfalls that come up. So one of the assumptions that I think a lot of people have is that my services cost a lot of money. My fees are very standard, just like any other real estate agent. The difference is that I am a seniors real estate specialist. And I recognize that working with seniors requires a different level of expertise, knowledge, and patience. Because of my experience in the senior industry, I have wonderful resources and relationships at my fingertips to make sure my clients get VIP service. And I can hold their hand, essentially. Things like, a typical client may be very comfortable signing real estate-related paperwork electronically. My clients usually expect me to come to their home and walk them through all the paperwork. And it's not uncommon for me to go back for several visits throughout the process to check in on what's going on and to help throughout the whole process. Another assumption that people may make is that this is something that can be done very quickly. I guess it's time for mom or dad to move. Let's call the real estate agent, and we'll get the house on the market in a week. It really is not that simple. It could be for you, for someone that is younger, maybe doesn't have health or physical challenges, but for a senior, there are so many moving parts, and it does require a lot more planning and preparation. One of the pitfalls I see are people just waiting too long to start the process. They start when there's a crisis. Mom or dad is already in the hospital, they're already unsafe to be at home, and then it just makes the whole process even more stressful. And people are scrambling, and at that point, oftentimes the client themselves is not able to participate in the process. So they're not able to be there as people are going through their personal possessions and helping decide what it is they want to take with them. One of the other things I caution you is to work with your real estate agent to make sure you're working with trusted partners. One particular example are contractors. It's not uncommon for you to have a knock on your door, especially if it's very obvious that you're a senior. For instance, if there is a ramp in the front of your house, you make for an easy target for people that may come knocking on your door offering some sort of product or service. Make sure you're working with your real estate professional to bring in people that are trusted, that can do a good job and treat your loved one as they should be treated. One of the other assumptions that people make throughout this process is that, the house needs a lot of work. There's been a lot of deferred maintenance because that's very common with seniors. We're not going to get anything for this house. Nobody wants this house. We're just going to sell it as is. And they're very quick to maybe take the first offer that comes along. And as I mentioned before, there are specifically local investors who that is exactly their tactic. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. They're business people. But if you're just getting one opinion on the value of your home, that's probably not the best way to get a return on investment on your property. They may come to you and tell you that your home is only worth this much, when in fact it could be worth so much more. So just please always remember those examples I gave you, like the one couple who thought their house was only worth $330,000. They ended up making $365,000. That is quite a difference. So let me talk a little bit more about some of the other pitfalls that people can run into, specifically when we're updating the house. I know I touched on this a little bit, but I want to emphasize when we're updating the home, we really are just trying to be able to market it as move-in ready. Don't let someone come in and convince you that you need quartz countertops and you need, top of the line light fixtures, or you need a brand new roof versus maybe just making some light repairs. It's very easy to overinvest. It's very important that you choose a real estate agent who understands the market and can do those return on investment calculations for you. The goal, obviously, is to make your home more attractive to the buying public, but you also want to make a good investment. Ideally, you would actually make money on that investment. But if you can at least break even and that gets the home sold faster, that's a win-win too. Some of the other things that I see with people updating their houses is not getting several different quotes. There is a big difference when you are out getting quotes. I'm sure you've experienced this. I could have 4 or 5 painters come to one of my listings and give me a quote, and they would all be vastly different. Now, the quality of their work might be vastly different as well. So it's really important that you're working with recommended professionals. Maybe it's somebody in your neighborhood that's had a good experience. Maybe it's your real estate agent. Maybe it's the moving company. But make sure you get references and you get a lot of different opinions. Make sure you're not overpaying, but at the same time, make sure you're getting quality work. I'm sure you've heard about some of the scams going around with different contractors taking advantage of seniors. They'll go in and accept some sort of deposit and start a project and then never come back to finish it. Or they may even collect the full amount of the project up front and never return to complete the work. And I've seen this time and time again. Then I come in and I have to bring another contractor in to finish the job, and then it costs the client even more money. So it's definitely not something you want to find yourself in. Always rely on a real estate agent to guide you through this process. One of the other things I see with renovations is the timeliness. Obviously, there is something to say about getting a house on the market quickly, getting it sold quickly so that those assets can be freed up to help pay for that senior's care. But it's definitely not something you want to be rushed. It does require some coordination though. So make sure you have the right team in place that knows what the timeline is and make sure things are happening in order. You wouldn't necessarily want to put new flooring down before the painters come in. And you wouldn't want to schedule the deep cleaner to come in before all the work is finished. This happened recently because of a miscommunication. The painters ended up coming in after the cleaner, and so I had to send the cleaner back out. So it's just very important to review the timeline, everybody's on the same page, and you create a plan so that things are done in the correct order, and it happens efficiently. For my closing remarks, I just wanted to mention a few things that you might want to keep in mind, either for yourself or your loved one, to plan for this in the future. There's a lot of discussion recently about universal design, aging in place, and really outfitting your home so that you can stay there safely and longer. And not to mention, with the aging population, these sort of design features are going to be very desirable to buyers. So keep in mind some tips that you can do when you're looking at trying to make your place more age in place friendly, such as all level living in a ranch home, for instance, or a home that has a master on the first floor. You might want to consider widening the doorways for wheelchairs and walkers to better fit through. Some other things to keep in mind are appropriate grip and handbars in the bathrooms so that they can safely complete their activities of daily living for longer in their home without assistance. So as you can see, there's a lot to think about in this process. And in addition to helping seniors, I help people of all ages. So if you're helping your mom or dad through this situation, it's not too early to start thinking about this for yourself as well, to start planning for the future. I'd be happy to meet with anybody for a consult to kind of discuss some of the things you should be doing to prepare. So as you can see throughout my presentation with the 3 Ps and everything that I've covered, things are very different in today's market. Homes are sold differently than maybe the last time you sold a property. And I think it's very important to mention that, especially for a senior, it's going to take a lot of hand-holding to really guide somebody through this process. This is not, a 20 or 30-year-old that I can give a checklist to and they can get the house ready and it's easy peasy. When you're working with a senior, this is much more involved. But I don't want you to be worried or frustrated or overwhelmed. There are people that can help. You can always reach out to Guiding Lights. We have resources for seniors, which is a great directory. There are resources out there to help you. You don't have to go this alone. And it's okay to ask for help. If you're an adult child and you're the one that's kind of leading the charge and helping your loved one make this transition, you do not have to do this alone. There are a lot of great resources to make this a smoother transition for everyone involved. So just remember the 3 Ps that I reviewed today: preparing your home for sale, presenting your home, and then promoting your home. Thank you so much for this opportunity to present to you today. I would be happy to discuss any of these materials or any other real estate related materials with you at a later time. Thank you so much.